Stop right there. Stop scrolling. Today, on the 17th of May, 2026, at exactly 9:15 a.m., an invisible final phone line was quietly cut inside an office overlooking Manhattan. The moment unfolded at Vogue headquarters. A call had come through from a high-profile representative in Montecito, and for the first time in 6 years, the answer was no longer a courteous, "We'll see." This time, it was direct, clinical, and absolute no. According to insiders, the message from Anna Wintour's office was short and brutally cold. Sources claim the secretary delivered it in a voice described as pure ice. The editor is currently unavailable for any discussions regarding the Duchess. Please do not call this line again. What I'm about to reveal is a developing story that has been quietly brewing behind the closed doors of Beverly Hills and even the Oval Office for weeks. This isn't some ordinary celebrity feud. This is something much larger. We're talking about the complete and systematic disappearance of Meghan Markle from the landscape. If you think Hollywood can be ruthless, you haven't seen the half of it. They haven't merely turned away from her. They've started wiping her from the record itself, one invitation at a time, one closed door after another. But before we get into the explosive documents recently uncovered by the Daily Mail investigation, do me one quick favor. If you want the stories the mainstream PR machine would rather keep buried, hit that subscribe button now. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss another update in this 7-year saga. And after you hear what was reportedly said about Lauren Sanchez, I want one word from you in the comments below. Done. Now let's step inside the room where everything began falling apart. Just 3 days ago, investigative journalist Robert Hardman found himself inside the Oval Office. This wasn't your standard interview setup. He was there to document a major shift in the relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States. Sitting on the president's desk was a confidential briefing note summarizing the king's recent state visit. According to reports, the president leaned back in his chair, pointed toward a photograph of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and asked a question Prince Harry may never escape. The reported transcript quoted him saying, "That wife of his, boy, what has she done to that guy? He had everything, and now he's not even on the map." When the leader of the free world looks at your marriage and sees wreckage instead of influence, you've crossed into dangerous territory. You're no longer viewed as a power figure. You become a warning sign. So why now? Why has May of 2026 become the moment everything finally gave way? Because of Hollywood's gatekeepers. There are women who never needed titles to command power, women connected to the men who write the checks. Nicole Avant, wife of Netflix executive Ted Sarandos, Lauren Sanchez, now Mrs. Bezos, the Kardashian empire, and of course, the immovable queen of fashion herself, Anna Wintour. For years, Meghan Markle reportedly tried navigating these circles, believing she could outmaneuver everyone in the room. But rooms like these have ears in the walls and traps beneath the floorboards. The Daily Mail investigation has now uncovered what may have been a fatal misstep. It centers around a private conversation involving Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's wedding festivities. Sources present at an exclusive dinner in Bel Air claim Meghan was asked why she wouldn't be attending the celebration. Her reported response turned into a lesson in self-sabotage. According to those present, she told a small group of influencers, "I was invited, but I chose not to go. I don't want to be connected to that circle anymore." Then came the line that reportedly detonated everything. "Honestly, she's just too trashy for my brand." Trashy. She allegedly used that word to describe the woman married to one of the richest men alive. And the consequences arrived fast. Within just 48 hours, the comment had reportedly made its way back to Lauren Sanchez. By week's end, Meghan's name wasn't simply removed from a guest list, it was reportedly blacklisted from Amazon-connected events for years to come. That's how gatekeepers operate. They don't yell, they don't post online, they simply stop answering. They unfollow, untag, uninvite. Take a moment to consider the scale of that mistake. While Meghan was distancing herself from the Bezos world, actual royalty, working royalty, like Queen Rania of Jordan, was reportedly inside the celebration itself, Real influence was in the room. Meanwhile, Meghan sat in Montecito watching images appear on her screen, realizing she may have shut herself out of one of America's most powerful circles because she let pride take over. Stay with me, because in part 2, we're going to examine the exact moment the Netflix deal reportedly transformed into a fossil. We'll break down the Nicole incident and the claims surrounding Netflix content chief Bella Bajaria, who reportedly told staff, "We're done with the chaos, no more Sussex projects." Period. And if you're enjoying this deep dive, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm people still want investigations instead of polished PR narratives. Because next, we're heading across the Atlantic, where King Charles reportedly delivered a speech that many say effectively erased his own son from royal history. The details of that carefully executed removal are coming up next. Stay tuned. To truly understand the Duchess's clinical isolation on this day, the 17th of May, 2026, we have to trace the wreckage left behind over the last 6 years. This wasn't a chain of unlucky accidents. It was a deliberate and self-inflicted dismantling of a global brand. When you examine the timeline carefully, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. These weren't bridges that simply burned. They were completely vaporized. The unraveling started back in January 2020, inside a secluded and cold mansion in Vancouver. The world gave it a name, Megxit. To them, it was presented as a leap of faith, but reality arrived quickly and harshly. The first shock was the loss of state-funded security. For the first time, the Duke and Duchess discovered that independence carried a massive cost. Protection came with a yearly, multi-million-dollar price tag, and that financial burden eventually pushed them toward commercial agreements that would later become the very thing that unraveled everything. Fast forward to March 2021, and the stage shifted to a Montecito garden. The Oprah interview was supposed to serve as the grand coronation of a new American chapter. Instead, it transformed into something far more dangerous, a declaration of war. According to palace insiders, that 90-minute broadcast marked the precise moment Prince William cut all direct communication. A source reportedly close to the Prince of Wales stated at the time, "He's finished. There's no return from this." She attacked the one person who cannot respond. That silence has now stretched across 5 years, and as of this morning, it remains complete. Then the credibility gap became something much larger, a canyon. May 2023 brought another turning point. In the middle of New York City, the Sussexes claimed they had been caught in a near-catastrophic 2-hour high-speed pursuit. But the report that followed from the New York Police Department was brutally concise. No evidence of high-speed activity, no crashes, no injuries. The public reaction was severe. People stopped viewing them as victims and began seeing them differently as dramatists. Their media value didn't simply decline, it collapsed. Then came what many considered a social eviction. By May of 2024, the reported trashy remark involving Lauren Sanchez had reached Jeff Bezos himself. The consequences came immediately. An invisible barrier appeared around the Amazon world. No invitations, no yacht gatherings, no access to the orbit surrounding one of the world's most powerful billionaires. By April 2025, the deterioration had spread into Silicon Valley boardrooms. At a high-profile gathering inside Netflix headquarters, Meghan was photographed appearing unusually attached to Nicole Avant, wife of CEO Ted Sarandos. Within 24 hours, those images reportedly disappeared from Getty Images. Industry whispers claimed the directive came from above. Netflix executives, according to insiders, had grown tired of serving as props in carefully crafted PR moments. The so-called clinging incident became the final trigger. And according to reports, it set off an internal reassessment that leads directly to the silence unfolding today. By January 2026, the fight had shifted from tabloid pages into the corridors of power in London. The Titles Deprivation Bill reached its second reading in Parliament. This was no longer just speculation, no longer a threat. Now it had become an actual legislative pathway capable of removing their final formal connection to the monarchy. And now we arrive at this morning, in the 17th of May, 2026. Today marks the official end date of the $100 million Netflix agreement. There was no midnight announcement, no triumphant renewal, no upcoming projects quietly entering production. Instead, there is silence. And that silence coming from Netflix headquarters speaks louder than any press release ever could. The money is shrinking. The gatekeepers have closed the doors. Parliament is preparing paperwork. But the most unsettling part of this entire timeline isn't what we've already witnessed. It's what remains hidden beneath the surface. Because there exists a mechanism within elite Hollywood circles specifically built to ensure someone never gets invited back into the room. So how does a social execution actually happen? The answer lies in a process that follows three distinct stages. And today, the 17th of May, 2026, it appears the Duchess of Sussex may have reached the final phase. To understand why Meghan Markle is no longer in the room, you first need to understand how that room becomes locked from the inside. Stage 1 is something insiders allegedly call diplomatic ghosting. This is the point where a celebrity's transactional value reaches zero. For years, Meghan's greatest asset in Hollywood wasn't talent or headlines, it was proximity. Proximity to the British crown. Executives across Hollywood reportedly answered calls from representatives at WME because they believed there was a path leading toward the King or the Prince of Wales. But once the royal state visit to Washington made one thing unmistakably clear, that the Duke and Duchess were no longer welcome within the monarchy's orbit, that bridge reportedly collapsed. The rule behind the freeze was brutally simple: no royal access, no returned calls. One senior talent agent recently described the reality in a whisper. The calls from Montecito are still coming in, but now they land in junior assistants' voicemail boxes. The CEOs have already shifted their attention. The silence itself is the message. Stage 2 is called image erasure, a far more aggressive form of visual warfare. In today's digital age, if your face doesn't appear in the official photo gallery, you effectively cease to exist. And, according to insiders, that is exactly what unfolded following the clinging incident at the Netflix gala. When the organizations behind major events, companies like Vogue or Netflix, decide that someone no longer adds value to their image, they begin using their influence with agencies such as Getty Images and Shutterstock. The process follows a precise formula. The rights holder submits a formal request to clean up the gallery. Photos disappear. Tags vanish. And within a matter of 48 hours, your presence at an A-list event can be digitally erased. This is Hollywood's quiet way of delivering a message. You may have attended, but officially, you were never there. It is perhaps one of the industry's most sophisticated forms of social rewriting. Then comes stage 3. And for someone whose public identity is deeply tied to image and presentation, this phase is devastating. Resource severance. For A-list celebrities, fashion is not simply clothing. It is a form of currency. Icons don't purchase dresses. Luxury houses compete for the privilege of dressing them. But rumors have reportedly been traveling through the fashion corridors of Paris and Milan, whispers of unreturned items, claims of altered couture pieces, questions surrounding whether the expected level of royal polish and elegance matched what brands such as Dior or Givenchy anticipated. And if those whispers spread, consequences follow. The lending ends. The custom couture stops arriving. Exclusive gowns are replaced with retail purchases. And in fashion circles, if a public figure is suddenly seen purchasing their own red carpet wardrobe, the symbolism can be brutal, because at that point, the industry no longer views you as an icon. You become a customer, not a muse. And sitting here today, all three phases of the freeze appear complete. The calls have gone silent. The images have disappeared. The couture houses have quietly shut their books. But while Hollywood may be occupied with dismantling social standing, something far more permanent appears to be happening overseas. Because there may be a reason King Charles chose his words so carefully in Washington last week. This was reportedly more than a snub, far more than a subtle message. According to observers, it resembled the activation of a sovereign-level protocol, one that makes Hollywood's version of social exclusion look almost insignificant. Want to know the exact phrase many believe signaled Prince Harry's place in the monarchy's future? The answer may be hidden inside one missing name from a map. Because a cold shoulder from California is one thing. What happened in Washington, D.C. last night moved into matters of state. While Hollywood may be closing social doors, the British Crown appears to have executed something much larger, a diplomatic maneuver that many believe quietly reshaped the public narrative surrounding the House of Windsor. And now, according to reports, the event itself sits permanently recorded within both White House and United Kingdom Foreign Office archives. At the highly anticipated state dinner, King Charles rose to deliver a speech that reportedly underwent 4 separate rounds of diplomatic review. Details have now emerged concerning what insiders describe as the final draft version, 4.2. According to those reports, this became the document many are calling Prince Harry's final verdict. The king began with a carefully written tribute celebrating the historic relationship between Britain and America. He spoke through geography, almost as though he were reading names from a family Christmas card list. He referenced the Carolinas. He smiled while mentioning Georgia. He acknowledged Annapolis and reflected on Williamsburg's historic significance. He even included a lighthearted nod toward Prince William County. Inside the room, where America's highest officials and diplomats sat watching, tension reportedly began to build. Because everyone expected one final name, Sussex County, a real American county with long-standing historical ties to Britain. It seemed like the natural ending, the expected conclusion. But according to those reports, it never arrived, and the silence surrounding the missing word became louder than any speech. Within diplomatic circles, this kind of omission has a name: diplomatic erasure. A precise and calculated removal from the official narrative. Because when a monarch delivers a state address, words carry weight. Every phrase becomes policy, and every omission becomes a signal. By excluding Sussex County while mentioning nearly every other royal-adjacent location, observers argue King Charles was not simply forgetting a name, he was delivering a message. One senior Foreign Office official reportedly whispered to a journalist afterward, "The meaning is obvious. He is no longer a factor. He is no longer one of us. We have moved forward." And according to those same reports, now the map reflects that reality. Insiders insist this was never a simple oversight from an aging monarch. Sources claim earlier drafts version 4.1 specifically contained the word Sussex before it was removed in later edits. If true, the implication becomes difficult to ignore. This wasn't accidental, it was deliberate, a public distancing concealed beneath the elegance of a diplomatic dinner. And for Prince Harry, watching from Montecito, the realization may have been painful. Because in the world's most powerful city, his own father may have just rewritten the map and removed him from it. Just a few feet away sat the President of the United States as the king appeared to quietly declare his own son a non-entity. But while one side is using carefully chosen words to erase the past, Prince William seems to be using numbers and ledgers to secure the future. While one branch of the family is being edited out of history, the other appears focused on rewriting the blueprint for royal survival itself. And now, as we speak, newly released financial documents from London may have finally settled the debate. Who is serving the public and who is serving themselves? Because the numbers are extraordinary. And they reveal a Prince of Wales playing a much longer and potentially much more dangerous game than many realized. While California headlines continue revolving around social exclusions and quietly expiring streaming agreements, London's headlines this morning, the 17th of May, 2026, are focused on an entirely different form of influence, not invitation power, ledger power. Printed across the front page of the Sunday Times sits a single figure that has reportedly sent shockwaves through anti-monarchy circles and Montecito alike: £7 million. That is reportedly the amount of personal income tax paid by the Prince of Wales to His Majesty's Revenue and Customs during the previous financial year. And to understand why this move may be strategically brilliant, we need to examine the newly released Duchy of Cornwall financial records for 2025-2026. For years, critics repeatedly questioned William over transparency. How much does he actually earn from an estate worth billions? And perhaps more importantly, how much does he give back? By releasing these figures now, William may have done more than answer criticism. He may have buried it beneath hard numbers. According to the financial disclosures, the duchy reportedly generated a record surplus of £23.6 million. And from that amount, Kensington Palace representatives reportedly confirmed that William paid the highest applicable rate of income and capital gains taxation, 45%, on all personal receipts. The impact of that figure is enormous, because according to reports, Prince William now sits within the top 0.002% of taxpayers across the entire United Kingdom. Think about what that means. Out of every 50,000 citizens, William reportedly contributes more than nearly all of them combined. He is no longer simply a royal figure. He becomes one of the largest individual financial contributors supporting the British system itself. Now pay attention to how this strategy works. Step 1. Complete transparency. By voluntarily releasing detailed records, he removes the mystery critics often rely on as ammunition. Step 2. Financial insulation. Whenever critics question the monarchy's cost, there is now a direct response, a £7 million contribution flowing back into the public system. Hospitals, schools, military services. Step 3. The contrast. And this is where royal observers believe the divide between the brothers has become impossible to ignore. Because on one side of the Atlantic, there is a duchess reportedly chasing fading invitations, navigating fashion politics, and attempting to transform borrowed aesthetics and streaming partnerships into a lifestyle empire, a consumer of relevance. Meanwhile, on the opposite side stands the Prince of Wales, a provider of stability. While one side burns bridges through headlines and documentaries centered around grievances, the other appears focused on constructing bridges through visible and measurable responsibility. When William pays taxes, supporters argue he is doing more than complying with law. He is investing in the monarchy's future survival. He is attempting to prove the institution isn't a burden carried by taxpayers, but a contributor to them. And in one Sunday newspaper edition, the narratives surrounding lazy royalty and hidden wealth may have taken a serious blow. But according to insiders, there may be an even deeper reason behind this sudden wave of transparency. Sources suggest these financial disclosures could represent preparation for something much larger, a structural transformation within the family itself. Because by establishing financial independence and demonstrating massive value to the state, William may be laying groundwork for a future decision capable of reshaping the monarchy. The message appears simple. If you do not contribute, if you are absent from the ledger, you may no longer remain part of the firm. And as we move toward the final chapter of this investigation, another question begins to emerge. What happens when the money begins running dry in Montecito at the same moment London permanently seals its gates? Because intelligence gathered from Westminster circles and Beverly Hills boardrooms has reportedly produced a scenario tree for the remainder of 2026, and one branch leads toward a reality almost nobody anticipated. Not even Meghan. It reportedly involves a document signed inside a London law office, one capable of making everything we've discussed so far feel like little more than a rehearsal. Because standing here on the 17th of May, 2026, the Sussex trajectory appears to have reached a wall. Hollywood's social execution appears complete. The King's diplomatic erasure has reportedly become official, and the Prince of Wales's financial maneuver has left Montecito appearing more isolated than ever. The question is no longer whether an ending is approaching. The real question is, what shape does that ending take? Based on information circulating through Westminster and Beverly Hills, a scenario tree for the rest of 2026 has now emerged. And the first branch, the most severe possibility of all, is hard severance. If the titles deprivation bill successfully reaches its third reading in Parliament later this year, Prince Harry could face the ultimate reset. The title disappears, the status changes, and he becomes simply Mr. Henry Mountbatten Windsor. The consequences would arrive immediately, because sponsors don't write massive checks for a Mr. They pay for a prince. Without royal status, the enormous cost of security remains, while the income attached to the title could disappear entirely. That path leads towards something far more dangerous: complete financial and social insolvency. Then comes the second branch of the scenario tree, the gilded retreat. In this middle ground outcome, the couple withdraws even further into life inside their Montecito estate. A smaller lifestyle brand survives selling luxury products, home collections, artisan jams, and carefully curated pieces to an audience that gradually shrinks. They become legacy celebrities. People who were once central figures but now watch major events from a distance. No Met Gala invitations, no Bezos celebrations, no seat at the table. Their story becomes a cautionary example of what happens when someone attempts to monetize an institution while simultaneously challenging the very structure that created it. But the third branch, the one many observers see as the most realistic and perhaps the most unsettling, is the solo pivot. According to the Hollywood Black Book investigation, while elite circles may have stepped away from the Sussex partnership, they may not have entirely closed the door on Meghan as an individual. But only under one condition: she separates herself from the royal baggage. In this scenario, a strategic divorce becomes less a personal decision and more a complete rebranding operation. Meghan pivots toward California politics, presenting herself as a self-made figure who broke free from both the restrictions of monarchy and the collapse of a Hollywood experiment. And according to this theory, preserving her future could eventually mean she no longer needs Harry. The logic behind it is straightforward. Meghan has always been viewed as a strategist. And if the Sussex label becomes too damaged, then a new brand emerges: Markle. Because figures like Lauren Sanchez and Nicole Avant may ignore a call from a duchess, but perhaps not one from a future political candidate. And now we arrive at a breaking development that reportedly landed only moments ago. As of this morning, the 17th of May, 2026, reports claim a document was leaked from a highly secure law office in London. Not just any document, a strictly confidential settlement and non-disclosure agreement, the kind commonly associated with the conclusion of high-profile partnerships. Sources claiming knowledge of the matter say Prince Harry's digital signature appears within the file, and according to reports, that signature was placed there 48 hours ago. But at the bottom of the page sits a massive and unsettling blank space. One signature is missing: Meghan Markle's, and suddenly the questions become impossible to ignore. Is this the final move in a larger game of global chess? Has the Windsor conflict transformed into the divorce story of the century right in front of us? The palace gates are closed. Hollywood contracts have quietly expired. And now, sitting silently on a desk somewhere, marriage paperwork reportedly waits unfinished and unsigned. The era of Harry and Meghan may be ending. But the era of consequences may only be beginning. And if you want to be first in line when we verify the metadata and uncover what's inside that leaked document, now is the time. Hit subscribe, turn on every notification. Because this story is moving faster than mainstream outlets can keep up, drop a like if you value transparency over carefully polished PR narratives. And comment the word "reveal" below if you want the full breakdown of that unsigned agreement. We're tracking every development, every minute, every second. Stay right here. Because the truth is getting closer.